Now, I do all ratings in the helicopter because, it's harder to get helicopter time. I've instructed, and then I've also been a renter at various places.
Right.
And you had said helicopters just period are dangerous.
Well, here that's what I heard. I was talking with a helicopter owner who also flies planes. He has a R-44.
Yeah,
something.
R-44.
And he was just he flies, he loves it, but he was just telling me like helicopters are dangerous.
There's more that can go wrong. So you're in your airplane, you start the engine, and it's idling with the prop spinning and the brakes on. Very little can go wrong.
Right.
A helicopter, just sitting there with the rotor turning, there are all kinds of things that can go wrong. Gust of wind. You're flying from the moment you start it. Now, a tailwheel airplane, you're flying it all the way to the chocks. A helicopter sitting still, you're flying it because the wind can affect the disc. The blades can sail if they're turning slow. Anytime you're starting to produce lift, if you stick one skid but not the other, or you're moving sideways, dynamic rollover, it'll just pivot over and crash. So there's all these hazards that go with flying helicopters that you got to be paying attention every second of every moment of every hour that you're flying it. You got to be paying attention and hands on the controls. Taking your hands off the controls, you'll trim it up and let it go.
So it's a different type of experience altogether.
As far as manual control, now granted that you can get them with, autopilots and you add features that make it easier, lower your task load. But when you're actually flying it, it is more demanding than an airplane.
Got it.
But that's also part of the reward.
100%.
Is you become part of that machine and the magic of it. That you can, the first time you do it, you pick up and you're 2 feet in the air, you're flying.
Yeah.
You are literally flying at that moment. You're not going anywhere, but you're flying. And then moving forward, taking off the aerodynamics. When we started to talk aerodynamics, when I was taking helicopters, I'm like, yeah, I'm a jet pilot from the Air Force. I know all about aerodynamics. And I'm like, no, the aerodynamics of a spinning disc with blades, one blade's going forward, one blade's going aft. The pitch is changing. You can stall the retreating blade, and the forward blade's still flying. So you start to lose lift on the disc, and it's a gyroscope. So everything that happens here, the result is here, 90 degrees out in the direction of rotation. So you kind of have to think about it, but it's rigged so that you don't, so that this will move you forward, this will move you left, right.
Oh, so actually when I move the stick in a helicopter, it's physically moving something in the 90 degrees.
But what's interesting is, so you move the stick forward, say you're in a two-bladed R-44, and you get the blades here and here, you move the stick forward, nothing happens there, it happened over here.
Oh.
So when you move the stick side to side, you can watch the blade change pitch forward and aft.
That's fast. I did not know that.
It is a little counterintuitive the way it's rigged. I think on a 44, it's actually 73 degrees out. It's also there's a word for it, and I can't think of it right now, but how solid the blade is. Like two blades. But you can get up to, 5. I think there are 12-blade helicopters.
So the more blades, the more what?
You'll have a little more solidity in the disc, and it'll have more momentum.
Got it.
So there is a inertia. Rotor blade inertia is a big thing. R-22s don't have a lot. That's a light helicopter. So when the engine quits, but the blade pitch hasn't changed, there's now nothing countering the drag of that blade. The blade will start to slow down.
Oh.
So what you'll have to do is lower the collective, reduce the pitch in the blades to keep the rotor RPM up. So just like in an airplane, when you are, say you're approaching a stall, right? You're slowing down. You fix that by pushing forward.
Right.
Okay, that reduces the AOA, and now you're going downhill, but your airspeed is increasing over your wing. You're maintaining laminar flow and lift.
Right.
And a helicopter has nothing to do with really the forward motion of the helicopter. The blades don't know and don't care.
Right.
So the blades are spinning. So if you don't do something to reduce drag so the blades don't slow down, they'll stop. They'll start making less and less lift and then they'll keep slowing down.
And I don't have wings which I could glide down to the ground with. I'll fall like a potato.
If you let the blades slow down. But if you shove the collective down, just like a paper helicopter, you let go and it auto-rotates down, but at a fixed speed. It is producing some lift, or it would continue to accelerate the blades on a helicopter. And I gave you that analogy before. You're in a Cirrus, has a parachute. A helicopter is like a Cirrus. It has its parachute deployed all the time. So if the engine quits, your parachute's out and it's already spinning, you just shove down the collective, maintain the rotor speed, and then fly to the surface without
so
power.
interesting.
And then at the bottom, you can take your forward speed and trade it for rotor speed. Is you flare the helicopter. You want to get low speed, and that's the thing about a helicopter. Unlike an airplane, you got to have forward speed all the way to the ground,
Right.
Because you got to fly it to the surface.
Right.
You don't want to stall it in; that's going to hurt.
Right.
So, but a helicopter, you can have zero speed when you touch down. So you flare that off. The energy you got, altitude gives you energy. You transfer it to the blades on the way down. So the blades maintain a constant speed, and they're producing lift all the way down. When you get near the surface, you flare. The act of flaring, it's like pulling G's. So you pull G's, more airflow up through the rotor, spins it faster, or at least maintains its speed as you're flaring and slowing. Then when you level the skids, an unnatural act for an airplane guy is to push forward near the ground.
Right.
But you got to push forward to level the skids, and then at the last minute, your collective increases the pitch in the blades. And you trade that last little bit of rotational energy, the blade inertia, and then you increase the pitch, making lift to soften the touchdown.
Whoa.
And so you can land anywhere. But like I was telling you, if you flew a helicopter exactly like an airplane, it would be safer all day long, because if the engine quits, you can land at zero speed.
That's so interesting. So you already have your shootout.
Yeah, exactly. You already have your
parachute.
shootout. But the fact why helicopters, it was that, anytime the blades are spinning, you're subject to a whole lot of things that can go wrong. Dynamic rollover.
Right.
There's a thing called ground resonance, where the blades get out of sync, just like a washer on the spin cycle when all the clothes get to one side and it shakes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
That's a good
or
analogy.
troops marching across a bridge when they're all in sync and the bridge starts to shake. Well, the whole helicopter will tear itself apart. So that's a scary thought. So, and there's things to mitigate that. Oleos on the struts, lead lag dampers on the blades, and keeping your blade RPM up will keep the blades on a 3-bladed 120 degrees apart. So it won't shake.
Whoa.
And then what are other things that can go wrong? Well, anything like a plastic bag gets in your tail rotor and your tail rotor becomes ineffective.
Yeah.
Then you'll start to spin.
So it's more of an act. So flying a helicopter compared to an airplane, it sounds from our conversation, it's more of a constantly active,
It's very dynamic.
Involved.
Yeah. And you got to be paying attention. Where the wind is coming from is very important. You wouldn't think, a helicopter can land downwind. In theory, yeah. Airplane, you can't. We can have zero airspeed, obviously. It's a helicopter. But I don't want to transition through having a tailwind. I always want to land a helicopter into the wind because you get something called translational lift. So effective translational lift, just like your airplane has vortices coming off the wingtips, a helicopter has a vortex coming off the rotor blades.
Oh, yeah.
And so high pressure air from the bottom circulates and goes through the top of the blade. So there's essentially a donut around the blade tips that the helicopter, the blades are pushing down on descending air. Well, you don't get as good a purchase on descending air, so they don't produce as much lift in that outer portion of the blades. But once I get moving forward and the air, the vortex on the blade tip starts to strip away, and now instead of being stuck to my wingtips, it goes aft, and now the blade is constantly in clean air, I get more lift magically. Not magically, but you know what I'm saying. I suddenly get more lift, so by landing into the wind, I keep my effective translational lift longer. If I'm landing in a 20-knot wind, I'll keep it all the way through touchdown.
Wow.
But around 16 to 24 knots, you lose that effective translational lift as the vortices start to adhere to the blades. Now you lose that extra lift from the blade tips, but you know it's coming.
Right.
And that's the thing about being a helicopter pilot, is anticipating the next thing that's going to change. Is okay, you'll feel a little shudder as those blades start to go in, out of and into vortex ring state. Like, okay, I'm starting to, that's not really vortex ring state, but you start to get that little vortex sticking to the blades. And you'll feel it, and you'll have to increase power a little bit to hover, and then set down. So that's what's rewarding about it, is you're thinking your way through the sky, and you have to think about everything. There are no moments you're not thinking about flying the machine. If they are, that's when you're vulnerable to a bad thing biting you, is it'll sneak up on you.